Okay, so Ayush, we talked about three guardrails already. So there is last guardrail that Godspeed provide, that is a decoupled architecture. So can you please give me the brief on it, what actually it is?
So what is decoupled architecture? Okay. So decoupled architecture means you've got a machine with various cogs. Okay. These cogs are not welded into each other. Okay. One cog is not welded into 10 other cogs, which means if you want to replace this one cog, you don't have to replace all the other 10 as well or change them. This is called decoupling. Means you can easily switch between pieces, components, tools, cloud that you use, okay? And you are very agile in your journey and very adaptive to changing situations because of decoupled architecture. And decoupling happens at all layers of your implementation. It starts from the cloud and infrastructure. Then next level comes even your message bus and different event sources. Then comes your HTTP server which you are using. Okay. Then even comes the language that you are working on. Today you built in Python. It's not scaling up. You have to move to Node.js. It's a big effort, right? You're coupled with the language to a great extent. All the logic is in that language. Then your database. You are decoupling with your database. So on and so forth.
So what are the benefits by using decoupled architecture into our project?
Using decoupled architecture, as I said, helps you stay agile as a company. Tomorrow, you need to, for whatever reason, either for compliance or for security or for data protection, you need to change any piece of your system. It could be a database, it could be somewhere you store your data, it could be for performance a particular language or an HTTP server framework you have chosen. You can replace them easily without affecting the rest of your application. You'll be very fast in adopting to changes.
So how Godspeed is implementing the decoupled architecture overall into the project?
So how Godspeed helps for decoupled architecture is through the other guardrails like schema-driven development and configure over code approach using high-level fourth generation abstractions. Okay, so decoupling firstly starts from your cloud layer. Godspeed is cloud agnostic. Okay, we actually even have a DevOps plugin which helps you install your CI/CD and install your monitoring over Kubernetes cluster anywhere on any cloud. Okay, you can run your application on any cloud. Okay, then within our microservices framework, how is the decoupling happening? Within a microservices, there are two main principal kinds of decoupling. One is with your event sources, second is with your data sources. Event sources could be any sync or async event sources. For example, your HTTP API, HTTP server, your GraphQL server, your gRPC server, your socket server, your listening to a message bus, listening to cron events, listening to even webhooks from Salesforce using the Salesforce SDK, for example. Okay, so these are all event sources. In Godspeed, there is a uniform way to either include a plugin or create your own plugin for an event source, and then one standard way to define all your events in a YAML standard in one file or a few YAML files, which are now agnostic to which programming language you use. Right? YAML doesn't have to do anything with Java or JavaScript. All right, and across all your events from any source, there's only one line which changes in your event schema, which is the URI of your event. Apart from that, everything else, the authorization policy, the Swagger spec of your input and output, all of that remains the same in the event sources and event definitions. Now coming to data sources, the standardization again Godspeed brings there in the data sources for a decoupled architecture is that we follow and we encourage you, though we don't force it, we encourage to follow Prisma as the standard way of defining your model of your database and working with migrations. Okay, within Prisma DSL, you can even specify advanced things like encryption, and all of this is decoupled with the database you use. It could be Postgres, MongoDB, MySQL, and we have even created a plugin for Elasticsearch. Okay, so that means now using the same database definition and even the same API, if you continue to use Prisma as your client, you can have access to all of these databases using one API. So tomorrow you even want to replace a database, you have a single API to work with multiple databases. Then again, decoupling as well comes when calling other external APIs. Okay, whichever client you're using, today you are using Axios and Node.js for example, but tomorrow you want to switch it, then your code should not change. So in Godspeed, again, we have a plugin based architecture, right? So you can include an Axios as a plugin, which is an API client, use this plugin and write the access to APIs in a YAML file as a DSL that we provide, okay? And then your YAML code is independent of the plugin you are using really. And that's way we also encourage plugin developers to follow some standards in defining how to use plugins. And you as your organization can also create your own custom plugins, defining your own ways of accessing third-party APIs.
Okay, so what happens if I am not following the decoupled architecture into my company? So what happens in that case?
If you are not following decoupled architecture, then you're replacing one piece or changing one piece means you have to change everything else in your project. And that's a big nightmare. And that's what makes companies slow and sluggish to adapt for changes as you grow. And I know this is a pain of many CTOs and CEOs out there actually. The fact that they cannot easily change a cog of the wheel because that cog is welded into the whole wheel.
That's great. Thank you so much for clearing all the doubts regarding the decoupled architecture.
Thank you very much, Mohit. So these were the 4 guardrails of Godspeed. Was the security, configure over code approach, then schema-driven development and decoupled architecture. In the coming videos, we can talk about other things like what are the benefits of abstractions in Godspeed. Thank you very much for watching.